I'm a psychologist, and I want to welcome you as the chair of the APA COVID IPV Roundtable Group. And on behalf of Dr. Eileen Serlin, who is the chair of the International Whole Person COVID group, where we're studying people's reactions and our own reactions to living with this horrendous virus through tumultuous times that we're in. So today, I'm going to introduce everybody like I usually do, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Serlin, who we have prepared a wonderful program with Dr. Serlin and Dr. Pardess, who we're going to really talk about ourselves as well. So with that, let me start out by saying we're an international group. I'm here in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, and with me is Dr. Giselle Gaviria. She's also here in South Florida, even though it looks like she's someplace else in I forget where this one is Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia. And we've got Dr. Marilyn Safer, who's here from Israel, Haifa, Israel. And we have Dr. Eleanor Pardess, who is here from Israel. And we've got almost Dr. Brittany Geddes, who is finishing up her doctorate, and she's here from Pennsylvania. And we have Paul Green, who is a new meeting for me. So welcome, Paul Green, and Dr. Serlin will do the formal introductions for you. So as we do every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern time, we start off with some introductions so you know who's here. People will join on and you'll see them all, the Zoom call, as they join on, and we'll turn to them during the discussion phase. But first, we're going to have Eileen Serlin lead us in how we're going to structure today. And she and Dr. Pardess are going to be helping us structure, looking at growing through the traumas that we experience and how all of us are dealing with it, perhaps as a model for everybody else to deal with it as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Serlin from San Francisco, California. Take it away.
Good morning, Dr. Walker, everybody on the screen. It's lovely to be here. It's morning here in San Francisco. Good evening to some of you. Good afternoon. We're just going to start with a little bit of introduction to what this whole person approach is. And I just want to say that I'm chair of this committee, the Whole Person Approaches. We are international. When we work with trauma or effects from COVID, one of the things we all know is that it's not just in the words. Actually dealing with trauma is in the body, it's in emotions, and that we have to kind of use everything. So we've developed a series of exercises just to help you really connect with the inner resilience, because one of the topics is that life will be filled with crises and challenges. And how do we find our inner strength and resilience to meet? So I'm going to start with a little screen share here. If we can, here we are. All right, can you see this? This is develop resiliency, compassion, fatigue, and regeneration. Can I see your hands? If you can see the screen share, I'll make it larger. I think I will. All right, let's just do, okay. Well, okay. So this was done a long time ago at APA, and you can see that we did another one actually with Dr. Pardess was on, Charles Figley was on. We were really exploring this theme of resiliency, compassion fatigue, because one of the things as caregivers that's happening to many of us is we're either developing our own numbness to some of this, numbness to hearing other people's stories. And so how do we move on? So the whole person psychology, that's ours, is really a framework. My orientation is existential humanistic, starting a lot with Abraham Maslow, that in today we need a whole new human being of human sickness and health. We tend to focus on health, on strength, resiliency. We've heard these terms, the self-fulfilling human being, potential, self-actualization. So in terms of developing these kinds of qualities, we're really looking at developing resilience, creativity, connection to help buffer these challenges of life. This was a book that we edited in 2007 on whole person healthcare. It really combines the whole body, mind, body, spirit, integration. We do focus a lot, and some of the ways of coping with COVID is really looking at things that we can get from it, really lessons learned, finding strength, finding meaning is very important. We have 4 elements here, the first being a lot of times what it means to be human. What do I believe in? And is life basically good? And these kinds of crises really shake many of our ideas. So we really look at, this comes up a lot. What kind of person am I? What kind of person do I want to be? The creative arts therapies, we draw a lot on, and I'll do a little bit with imagery. We use art, dance, journal writing, all ways to really get at what is the meaning of a difficult experience. We use elements from body work, from somatic, from Feldenkrais, movement, Tai Chi, all help us really access inner strength, and spiritual ones. Some people are using meditation, mindfulness at this point. Prayer has been very helpful. Traumas in the body. Bessel van der Kolk talks about speechless terror. We need nonverbal symbolic approaches is what we often use. Crisis of mortality, meaning and identity. It's confrontation with death. And the numbers of death, the shock of death. Many of us are really facing people we know, our friends, our family, and our own mortality. And that kind of can throw us into a time of really reflecting on the meaning of our own life. Trauma is often about stuckness and numbness, especially during COVID. We're often sitting in our chairs on Zoom a lot, and we need creative ways to move and play and develop spontaneity again so that we can deal with things in reality as they come up. Trauma is about fragmentation, splitting off parts of the self, splitting off memories. We work a lot with reconnecting in all these various modalities. That's a big theme, to reconnect. This is some resources. I can put them in the chat if you like. And just a little bit more about these approaches. Meditation trains attention and awareness. And imagery, we have different kinds. We use guided imagery, we use kinesthetic for movement. Verbal imagery, we have poets and poetry therapy. And maybe if you've heard from the United States inauguration, I was going to start with some lines from the youth poet, really can capture an experience sometimes more than discursive language. We use multimodal imagery, all the senses. We use creative arts therapies are separate. I come from dance therapy, there's art, they have their own associations. Expressive therapies, just to clarify, is a newer development. They have their own associations now in trainings around the world, which combine all of them based on a lot of traditional healing roles in society. And finally, this is a book that just came out. And it's a small book. I can put it in the chat where it really summarizes, and I call it an anti-manual manual. It gives guidelines for these practices, but that you can do it in your own way. So let me stop share. And I can do some of these practices and lead them with you, but I am aware of the time. So maybe if I can turn it over to Dr. Pardess, and if you want to discuss more about this, and then we can do some experiential if there's time as well.
Okay, with pleasure. I really, you bring me, I really connected with Eileen way back on those continuing education workshops. Actually, to be frank, you brought me back now to ground zero, the workshops we did back then. Mm-hmm. And the more international parts that we have been through together, and in Israel too. So also dealing with, I'm very committed to the part of domestic violence, also cultural diversity. That's my research, my area of research is compassion and self-compassion. And I really bring in the attachment perspective to bridging with Eileen's perspective on the growth through adversity and the humanistic approaches. Okay, so there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And bringing Bowlby in, I really want to stress that Bowlby said, our task is that of one of promoting conditions in which the latent constructive forces come into place. He likens that to the job of a surgeon. The surgeon does not mend bones. He tries to create the conditions which permit bones to mend themselves. And I really like that quote because we sometimes get into that fix-it mode. And this is a different mode. And this is the question I really wanted to bring to the group. What are those conditions conducive to growth? What are those conditions that we can move? Eileen mentioned the moving. So it's about 25 years using these moving model workshops, combining different approaches as Eileen showed earlier on with the multimodal. I won't go in that, but these are different modalities. The use of, when we use the word moving, I use it also as an acronym. I won't go into that now, but I really mean moving in relation to oneself, that inner movement, and moving in relation to others. It's a relational approach, and presencing with the world, with earth, with others, with nature, and connecting and reconnecting to oneself and to one's resources, community, to nature, and to life. Sometimes it's even here in Israel, we have the Walking the Bible. So it's, it has you can see here Masada and the immigrants who were, whose bereaved parents, that they were, this is back in one of the terrorist attacks that we have workshops for as part of the ICMC, the Israel Crisis Management Center, SELA, which means a rock to lean on. So part of the moving model, the last time I presented here, I spoke about the COVID challenges and our embodied presence online. Clinical hospitality, that's what we call it in Hebrew, Hachnasat Orchim, the way an online hospitality. So we mentioned the indoor part of how do our embodied presence when we are out of nature or locked down in home, and how we have moved as clinicians to the online medium. This part, which I was asked to present separately in another presentation, is the part of nature, walking in nature, narrative, sharing stories, linking stories, connecting through our building bridges between past, present, and future, and the expressive arts. The key message here, and here Diana Fosher comes in, and with other attachment-based approaches, in the essence, trauma is being overwhelmed with difficult, painful emotions and alone, afraid and alone. That's the essence. So our challenge is actually undoing aloneness. So we can do that through nature sometimes. And since nature does provide endless opportunities to reconnect, harnessing the transformative power of our imagery, even if we're out of nature, we can do that. These workshops are nature-based originally, but we've done that with the tree and with plants, pots here you can see in my background. We work with the embodied presence, inspired by the work of many others. I won't go into that. And the humanistic approaches such as looking back, looking ahead, Seaman, enhancing trust in latent constructive forces of growth, of course, the organismic valuing, the trust, organismic trust, and my PhD supervisor, I was very lucky to have Professor Mario Mikulinsa. So he really brings together the attachment and the humanistic and social. So speaking from Job, there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will renew itself. And I can send you the YouTube to show you some illustrations of that nature-based works. Trauma reveals the roots of resilience. Okay, that's Diana Fosha. The forces of transformance, just to bring in the clinical implications, require, first of all, and that's so important in the area of domestic violence, conditions of safety. Safety first, safeness. And we usually talk this, I quoted from Diana's work, but we talk in terms of safeness, feeling safe in one's body, informed by Porges, informed by Ruth Feldman, who works in the same university as I work. So the synchrony is building trust, building the safeness, fueled by hopefulness, and in turn powering the search for those vitalizing affects of transformational processes. In one, just, in a very short bottom line, the roots of resilience are feeling held, feeling felt, feeling held in the mind of and the heart of another person who is empathetic, compassionate, attuned, self-possessed, and that's very important. Bolder, stronger, kinder, wiser, and undoing aloneness. In COVID, I want to bring up the questions that is for the discussion. So I'll wrap up now. If you want, I'll go back to it later. But I do want to say that we're talking about fostering secure connections. I like to talk about it as islands of security, islands just, sort of moments of meeting, islands of resilience, stepping stones, building bridges. That is how we strengthen our immune system. The whole person approach definitely would see the body, the physical immunity. And speaking about COVID, and last time we spoke about a host who becomes hostage, yes, physically also COVID and also as clinicians. But this time I'm talking also about how a resilience, in Hebrew actually it's the same root, immunity and chisun and vaccination, and chosen is the same root. It's important. So here, all our therapy sessions, yes, are, keeping what we want to keep out and what we want to bring in, and how we protect ourselves and how we keep safe, how we sort of build that also so that we can feel right, sense what's right for us. That means facing otherness, because immunity has to do with coping with unfamiliarity. Okay, so this is a whole issue of how we can cope with otherness. And maybe you all know that it's not the trauma, it's the struggle. PTG, I don't think it's right to talk now about PTG. I rather talk about resilience and growth through adversity. However, it is, as Tedeschi says, it's illusion. Yes and no. He himself says it, but whatever, it is not to be confused with positive thinking. This is also culture. Talking in this Israeli, we can get very allergic about that positive thinking. Okay, so there's a part of culture there, but I really, that's a request, okay? And also back to moving in relation to oneself, to others, and to the world, and to nature, and to the earth, actually, because we have the climate change and all that. It's a journey mindset, a journey. Life is a journey, not a destination. So these are from the research, the key themes, but I can go back to it later. But if I wrap up, it's the mutual vulnerability, the humility, the flexibility, creativity, and compassion. Bottom line, as caregivers, and that was the continuing education, that's how you say it, Eileen, a workshop that we did together, to be affected, not infected. We did that way back in Washington, D.C. I don't know when that was, quite a long time ago. In Toronto, ICTSS also. But it's definitely what we didn't mean COVID then. Yes, but it is that word to be affected, not infected, actually acquired new meanings now in the context of the COVID crisis. So really, I would like to bring back and connect you with the question: what are the conditions that are conducive to post-traumatic growth? To grow through adversity, to connecting, to reconnecting, or just share reflections wherever it takes you.
This is opening for the discussion from the group at this point. Is that correct, Eleanor?
Yes, I think so. Unless you want to give an illustration, whatever you prefer. Just if you want to give a more illustration. I really think I already see that on the chat you have answered, so that I really appreciate that. So it is the support, the connecting, that energy that emanates from others. I can see you're referring to. You can also use that on the chat, or just jump in and share your own. Could be from your personal and from professional, and also with a kind of a trying to think also about how we help others keep safe, because that's also a major issue and challenge on doing aloneness in the context of working in the area of interpersonal violence.
Paul, you're muted, yeah.
Oh. Hi, I'm Paul Green. I'm in New Rochelle, New York. One of the original hotspots. It was quite terrifying.
On the panel, don't we?
Yeah. If your question is, what do we do in therapy with our clients to facilitate their growth, and in every way that I can, I'm trying to be sensitive to ways that they need to feel safe, and to do that, whether that's in the setting of my office, how I speak to them, what I'm paying attention to. I'm acutely aware of the factor of maybe mutual safety as well, feeling safe with them and them with me. It's hard to define in perhaps particular behavioral terms, but that's what I am, I think, most aware of, sensitive to at the time. That's what I'm trying to do.
For me, I find that having hope is very important, to help people see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that things may look pretty bad right now, but that there is some kinds of hope depending on the context. Certainly for working with COVID right now, the hope has been the vaccine. Interesting for me, I personally have been very hopeful, because once the vaccines were announced, And then the rollout here has been such an absolute horror show that it really caused me to start losing hope. And I have to say that I had a real meltdown myself personally because I would get on the computer and sign up and the computer would crash. I'd get a call from somebody saying, oh, they're letting people in at this particular place. And I'd get in my car and go out there and I'd sit on a line, and then just a few cars before, I'd be turned away, no more vaccine. And this happened 3 or 4 times. And finally, I just told everybody, I don't want anybody to talk to me. I want nothing to do with this. It'll happen whenever it happens. And of course, nobody left me alone. And so that's the second thing. It's not just hope. When you run out of hope, you need to be with the people who can give you hope as well. And indeed, I listened to them, and the next couple of days, I did get another call saying, go here. And I went, and sure enough, we got, yesterday, I got my first shot. So the hope is back. And I think that being able to talk about that to other people and share that news is also important for people to understand that if it isn't today, it really will be tomorrow. But it doesn't matter intellectually. You can know that, but you need that emotional connection to be able to get there. And I try to give that to the clients that I work with and the people that I work with, that it really is happening. It may take a little longer than we'd like, but it is going to happen.
Thanks. That is so inspiring, Eleanor, and thanks, Paul, too. I think we're talking about the power of connections. And we've been struggling also. The most recent research I've been doing is on hopefulness. And there's so many different perspectives on hopefulness. And you're really bringing in that relational perspective of hopefulness, which is embedded in our relational, bi-directional. You can't give hope. It's not something that someone gives someone else. It's in the synchrony of the timing and space and attunement and mindful attunement, and feeling hopeful in one's body. So I really resonate with that. Also trust in the process. Okay, that's the trust the process. That's the key message also in terms of vaccine. And I resonate with what you told. We are in a different situation here in Israel. I don't want to rub it in, but I'm also already after everyone who's after over 40, yes, I'm after the second shot already. And this is just yesterday night, I had my second shot. So this is I'm supposed to feel fever and feel lousy. And so here I am, I'm okay, yes. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's all a question of time and real, but it's a process also. And also there's afterwards. Yes, so I really thank you. What Paul said, I think you weren't in our last workshop our last webinar on clinical hospitality, but that's it. That's clinical hospitality. You reflecting on the warm and welcoming presence and environment and atmosphere, your voice, you're being very mindful of the details in your office and how to welcome people and make them feel at home. That's it. Exactly. It's not, as you said, it's not something cognitive. It's not, it has physical aspects of feeling, comfortable, but it's in your emotional availability. That's the key. And really, that's a separate workshop we will have on caregiver satisfaction and regeneration, but I really appreciate you bringing that in, because that is a key.
Eleanor, I just wanted to share something personal with everyone here. We're all smiling about Israelis being allergic to positive psychology, but the importance of the difference between post-traumatic growth So this is a theory which really is very optimistic. And then it's Joseph and Lindley who talk about growth through adversity instead. They're British humanistic psychologists, which is really somewhat about more valuing the adversity, that there's a lot that it teaches us or strengthens us. And because it's so inevitable, we may as well have a appreciative attitude toward it. And so one of the things COVID did for me is that we wanted to keep our offices longer. And in San Francisco, many of us psychologists are closing down our offices. We haven't been in for a whole year. And in a way that's been very tragic, having to close down part of life. But it's really opened me to new things that I was dragging my feet on otherwise. And it's sort of the beginning of a new stage of life. So even though there's a lot of sadness and grief, and we say, well, we can laugh and cry at the same time. So we can both feel the grief and feel the hope and the opening at the same time. And it's not just hope, it's really the crack in the light that sometimes helps us find the meaning and the courage to embrace a new stage of life for the change.
I really thank you for mentioning Stephen Joseph. He's a very important and meaningful influence, and I've been honored to be at his conferences in Nottingham in the UK. I will be glad to send to you the most, he writes about the paradoxes and of post-traumatic growth and about even with prisoners, the recent research I just found so interesting that inmates, yes, that the relationship they have with their, how do you call it? The
guard.
Yes, the guards, yes, in the prisons are key. If they feel a sense of connection and, you know, someone being compassionate towards them or empathetic or feeling genuine, and the part that he talks about is authenticity, that is key. And I really appreciate his seeing stress as an engine for growth. And I will send that in another afterwards, but it's also he's talking about, this is it, he's talking about the vessel, the shattering of the vessel. It's a different take on the shattering usually used in existential. It's much more even linked into Kabbalah ideas of tikkun, of ruptures and repair, because it's really about ruptures and repair. But this brings in the part of humility and compassion as a root, as key to our balancing care for self and others.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually now 11 days after the second vaccination, and a real feeling of relief and relaxation. And I just want to share with you, apparently us older folks have less secondary reactions to the shots than the young people. None of my friends have had, except for having a little bit of a sore arm, no after effects. I must say that I was quite anxious about the second shot because they were talking about it, but nobody that I know has had that kind of experience. And it's really, difficult for me to be talking with friends of mine in the States, you know, and friends who have serious complications that put them in danger, and not have the possibility of getting the shot. I mean, they're not even in a position to get in their car and drive to try and find a place. I mean, it's really, really terrible. So having watched Trump get on the plane and leave, that was also for me a very wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that you in the States will have better access now to the vaccine, that they seem to be dealing with it in a more serious fashion.
I think you raise such an important issue, Marilyn. It's very hard to have hope when you don't have trust in your leadership. I think for most people that I know, even if they didn't support the new administration here and didn't support Biden, they really do believe that he will be fair and they have much more trust that he will try to get the vaccine going and get it to people. So I think it's important. I was going to share, I love what you were saying about the fear of it. I wasn't so fearful about any reactions. I was fearful that it wouldn't be there when I got there. It wasn't until they put that injection in my arm that I was sure that I had it. And then it may sound very silly, but I sort of talked to the vaccine as it was going into my arm and saying, thank you for being part of me. And thank you for all you're going to do to make me strong. And I really felt like I was sort of bonding with the new vaccine that was going into my arm. And the only reaction that I had was a little soreness, that even less than from a flu shot. It was so minor. And none of my friends have had reactions either.
No.
I think it's
I
really,
had my first shot about 10 days ago, and I did not have a great response to it. A lot of soreness, the next day fatigue, and at night chills on the second night. Somewhat washed out, but by the third day I was fine. I was fine. So I don't know if the second shot will be worse, but I'm still looking forward to it.
But
And
maybe talk to it a little bit as it goes in.
I'll
Right? My husband had a reaction more like you did, Paul. He had chills and a little bit of he has Parkinson's, so he had a little bit of that instability that Parkinson's brings around. But it was for just a couple of hours and it was gone as well. So I think whatever it is going on, for each of us is going to react a little bit differently given our bodies.
And the belief that having the antibodies and the shot, I'm looking forward to it. Really makes a world of difference, just to feel that sense of protection.
I find it fascinating, the difference. We're talking about looking forward to getting these shots and these reactions. Can you imagine talking about going to the dentist for a root canal this way?
Right. Unless I had a toothache, no.
I relate a lot to Dr. Green, what you said with your reaction. I was fortunate enough, I work for a hospital, so even though I'm really young, I was allowed to, they offered the shot to trainees. So I was really grateful, but I also had a very bad reaction. I get migraines, so it triggered like a couple days of migraines, which is kind of the norm for me, so that was pretty fine. But the day after I got the shot, I was wiped out. Like I slept the whole day. But it really made me think, like, what if I had gotten COVID? Like, if this is a resemblance of what my immune response is just to the shot, like, can you imagine how bad it would have been if I got the virus? So even though I had a bad reaction, it still resulted in feeling grateful and a lot of gratitude. And it was very interesting as I was like heading to the hospital to get my first shot, because I go for my second one on Monday. My mom called me, and back in my hometown there was a girl who was my age. We have like the same pre-existing health condition, and she's in oxygen in the intensive care unit with COVID. And so it just like struck me how I could easily be her. And so it was very like a humbling experience. And I worked for the VA, so I was very grateful for the VA for being so on top of the rollout and really welcoming all employees to get the shot. So I agree with everybody in the sense of hopefulness and the gratefulness that I also had the opportunity to get it so soon.
I'm going to talk about trust for just a second, Laura and others, because I didn't get the shot. And a faith in the government. California is really a mess too. And they're running out of vaccines, actually. So people who are going onto, let's say, Kaiser website are saying, we no longer have any available. my doctor said he'd let me know. Now I could get one. I'm over 70. If I'm a frontline worker, but I'm really working on Zoom and I'm safe. So friends of mine have said that they're healthcare workers, you can, but they really are at risk and I'm not. So I'm not going to sign anything in order to get a shot. I'm going to be happy to wait until it's my turn, only because I do have faith in the new administration or our governor that sooner or later vaccines will become available. So it may be, he said mid-February, it may be April, but I can feel calm about it because I do have faith that sooner or later it'll come and that I can just do what I'm doing, which is basically staying home and wearing masks and all of that. And my time will come too for a vaccine. So I'm listening to all of you, but that's really the crack where the light comes in. It's trust that sooner or later it'll come along and things will be fine then.
I really thank you, Eileen. This is also, I'm a second generation. Eileen worked, my mother is still CEO of that ICMC. She's working as with the CELA, yes, and I really feel like grateful. And speaking of chills, the self-compassion that comes from that warm glow before coming into this room, I actually did have chills, yes. So, but I didn't talk to them. I didn't think, as Lenore said, that that's a good idea, but I was trying to imagine that warm glow to sort of comfort myself, and like I went and wrapped myself in another soft, so that I think our imagination and resources, because the trust you're talking of and the rupture and repair of trust, okay, because these trust is breached and there are differences. And I always say about the connection that the cracks are also cracks in trust. And that's the rupture and repair, but also it's that we always think that we're in the same boat. Even if we live in the same community or the same family, we are not on the same boat. Yes, we are on separate boats. This is David Schnarch, on separate boats, working very tumultuous waters, as you said, Lenore, but we are in separate boats, and it is important for us to remember that, because it is an illusion to think, you know, that the sameness, and we try to cling to that and deny differences in face of uncertainty, but it is important that we are on separate boats. Thank you for that, Eileen.
May I, at this point, introduce a little experiential, and then we can go from there? Eleanor and I have worked together, and I must say, and in Israel and with her amazing mother. And one of the things we share is a love for nature and trees. So we use a lot of tree imagery. And Eleanor does, she has cards with images of trees, and you saw the beautiful, and I took a photograph of one too, because we had these fires here in California, and it is amazing to see a burnt out tree with new growth coming out as a symbol of resilience. So the tree of life, of course. So if you'll bear with me, I'll introduce a tiny experiential, and then we can talk to there using the image of trees. So kind of as Lenore said, when we combine the image with the body, it really brings an emotion. It helps us prepare we do imagery to prepare for surgery and so forth. It really gets the body ready to accept the vaccine, to accept surgery. So in this one, we'll use a tree image. Now, it really combines a lot that we do with resilience are the main things, of course, safety first, safety, stability, and mobilization. So the safety and the stability, we start with the image of a tree. So it's kind of like meditation, but it introduces imagery in the body into it. So if you want to just take a moment, you're welcome to close your eyes. And like a meditation, we almost always start with feel your feet on the ground if you can. And feel yourself in the chair. Feel where your supports are, what you're sitting on, what you're touching in this reality. Imagine that through your feet, there are roots growing down into the earth, that under this narrow surface is a teeming life and energy and heat under the surface, and that our roots go down and touch into that energy down there and life force. And that your spine is like the trunk of a tree. It's very sturdy. And imagine we have in California these oak trees, these big, very old trees that have been there through centuries. And they've been there through storms and wind, and they're still there. And we also know now that trees don't exist as individuals. They look like individuals, but underneath, the roots are all interconnected, sometimes through mushrooms and little carriers, insects, mushrooms are connecting nutrients and sending back and forth. So that under the earth, you're connecting to other roots, other life forces. And as you're there, it's a beautiful sunny day, as it is here, blue skies. And suddenly over the horizon, you see a bit of darkness. And it gets closer. And you see clouds, and you realize a storm is coming. And you keep breathing down into your feet, down into you. You let your weight sit in the chair. And you keep breathing, slow and steady. And the storm gets a little closer, and you feel the winds pick up. And you keep breathing, slow and steady, feeling your trunk, feeling your roots. And pretty soon the storm is swirling all around you, and there's noise and branches and storms, and you find that quiet place in the middle of the storm, the calm place where you're feeling your roots, you're grounding your breath. And soon the storm begins to get quieter again, and you keep breathing. And then begins to move away from you, and you keep breathing. And then you begin to see the blue sky come again, and the sun comes out again, and you keep breathing as you have for millions of years. And you remember to find that quiet place in the middle of the storm where you're grounded, where you've been through many before, and your breathing is steady, and you're connected under the surface, or we sometimes begin to take it into movement with the branches, can begin from this steady place to reach out and connect with other branches. If you want to feel or imagine that your branches now can expand and begin to connect out from others as you feel the safety of your roots, your weight, your spine. And you're welcome if you're ready. We can open eyes slowly, come out gently from a relaxation. This is a combination of imagery, relaxation, grounding, tree imagery, organic imagery. And I use this a lot with myself and with clients who are in panic. I see a lot of panic attacks, anxiety, fear. Very simple.
Thank you for that.
I saw you.
Someone just passed by me and asked me, "Were you sleeping?" Like, no. I'm meditating.
That's a lovely meditation, and one that I think is very useful. I work with a lot of the people who are in prison for battered women who are in their own home prison. And I think I often have them design a safe place, but I think giving them a safe place like the tree is another gift for them, and I'm going to use it. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's the whole symbolism of the tree being sturdy, strong, permanent. And even if it's taken it down from fires or there's regrowth, resilience.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. So there's an echo. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, the intention, it can be very quick. And the other thing is that if sometimes it's really important to name trauma directly, to name things. Other times it's important to use imagery or symbols. So the storm can represent anything. So it's open-ended enough that you can read your own life into it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Patricia, did you want to say something? I saw your hand up.
Yes,
Hi.
I also wanted to hear about Spain.
Well, regarding the vaccine here, I haven't got it yet, but it's because I haven't got the time to schedule my appointment. And most of my colleagues have had it already. And I had a very bad experience 4 years ago with a vaccine. And that's one thing that's why I'm like delaying, taking my time. But on the other hand, I feel very secure. And I think it's because, fortunately, during the most terrible time during the first month, March, we had in our unit, most of my colleagues got infected, but not me and other 3.
Ooh.
So that has given me some sense of security in a way. And I feel that I'll be getting the shot, but I don't feel that urge. It might be because I don't listen to the news that often, and it helps me. And I take my measures, security measures. I wear the mask, cleaning all the time. Although I work in a public hospital, we do have safety measures already in my office, and that's, I understand that people feel very, very scared about it. And I might be resilient because I survived cancer 7 years ago. And that it has given me a sense of security in myself. I fight back. I know how to fight back. And I know that I will die anytime, as Buddhism says, every day. You know, I have this, I wish I will live forever, right? But that gave me a sense of day-to-day well-being, being fine with myself, my son, my pets, my family, my patients, and I try to have that. And it's been wonderful to, Eileen, to follow your meditation. I live near a forest and a golf court. It's next to my house. And I don't live in the city, right in the city. That's why I have chosen to live like 20 minutes away from Madrid. And trees are the most powerful beings that connect us around the world. and connects us with the water and the earth, the water, the wind, right? And although we have an ocean that and a sea in Israel, we have the Mediterranean, right? And the Atlantic Ocean. We are all connected. And I liked also the idea of being my own boat. That's, yeah, we're not in the same boat. Where everyone has its own boat, and we are close to each other to help. We won't sink. We are survivors as a species, right? And I think it's a beautiful presentation each of you have done on all the contributions.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. I really appreciate your bringing in that collective idea of resilience and reminding us all that resilience is not just an individual journey, it is a collective one. And the process, you know, that your illustration of how building your own immune system and just your patience and trusting the process, because you actually do say that you feel more immune because you have overcome challenges. So
Yeah.
here we are. I always thought that resilience is key to post-traumatic growth, and now we know it's bi-directional. That growth is building our resilience to cope with future challenges. And I really, really think that also a gift coming together that we definitely would not have done across the ocean in other periods. This has really been a blessing, and I'm really grateful for this space for sharing.
Yes.
So thank you, really.
Beautiful. Well, unfortunately, this has been such an exciting and loving sharing session today. We're almost out of time. Amazing how fast time goes. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to be open, to share. And I hope all of you who are listening to this video, you know, we know we get about 300 to 500 people who listen to the Facebook Live video that we have made of this recording. I hope you take some time to think about what contributions you have made in your own life to build your resilience, as well as to build your clients' resilience and your friends' resilience, because I love the idea, the bidirectionality of all the people that we meet together. There's something really special about many of us who are in the caring professions, the healing professions, that we manage to have those connections with people even when they're not paying us for our skills and our techniques. So let's think about that, and hopefully we will join us next week. We'll be back again at 12 noon. Sometimes the same people, mostly a good group of the same people, but we always have new people like Paul Green, who we're so glad joined us today, and hope that you will come back again, Paul. Next week, we're scheduled to talk about embodiment in Zoom, how some of the positive, I won't call it positive psychology, Eleanor, but positive things that have come out of our ability to relate to each other. And we're going to talk about touch. How do we make up for the missing touch that we don't have, the hugs that we want, that we have to give ourselves for all of our friends? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how each of us who want to participate will do it. And we'll open it up for discussion again next week. So I look forward to seeing you. COVID IPV on Facebook. It's a group on Facebook. It's a group on Instagram. We also tweet and we do some other social media. And if you want to be on the Zoom call itself, send us a note on Facebook and we'll send you the link so that you can get on and join with us in person so that we can see you. And with that, I wish everybody to have a happy, safe, and growing week.
See you next week.
The next week.